Okay. Good morning again. Now no one's had a good morning. Great. Great. Come on, guys. The weather the last 2 days has been spectacular, has it not? God is awesome. I mean, it was really nice. Really nice. And for a number of reasons, I'm very excited about today. We're closing up the Gospel of Mark that we've been studying through. Which means we're getting into some new stuff as well coming out next week. Very excited about that in terms of the challenge that I think it's going to be for us as individuals, but probably more appropriately as a body, as we collectively look at what it means to be the body of Christ and be the church. This is exciting waters that we're kind of like fading into there, and the boat is kind of shifting out into the deep seas, and I'm excited for where it's going. I'm very excited about the implications of it. And anyways, I just want to kind of throw that out there for you as a little, I don't want to say a sales pitch, but a sales pitch. Next week we are starting the series called Commission. And it's going to be not just 1 week, 2 weeks. It's going to be an extended period of time where we as a church really look at the biblical mandate for the body of Christ. What did Jesus ask us to do? And have we stopped and considered and reflected and deeply looked at the implications of what Jesus said when he left this earth and left us his mission? Do we understand what it is? Do we understand what it's about? Do we understand our relationship to it? And it's going to be really challenging. I can guarantee you that it's going to be very challenging. It's going to touch on maybe some areas deep within the recesses of your heart that maybe you haven't wanted God to really touch. I'll give you a certain part of my life, God, on Sundays, but let's not talk about these other areas. Let's not talk about my entire life and what that means. And I think we're going to find that's precisely what Jesus is going to do. And we're going to get into this, and so I really encourage you to come and to really start praying even this week, just for an open heart, an open mind that God would challenge you afresh, have you consider these things in a new way, and be willing to go where he leads. And there's a lot of that out there that's a big question mark. There's not some cookie cutter thing of where God's leading each and every one of us in the exact same way, but he is desiring to lead our lives entirely. And we want to kind of mine the depths of that and get as down and dirty and real as we can. Because I think we are realizing and further realizing and wrestling with the realities of living for Jesus in a fallen world. And I hope we're coming to a better understanding each and every day that if this is what it was all about, wow, what a sad picture. That if this is really the culmination, or it's me and my little existence, my little story, if this is really what it's all about, wow. That can't be right. And we're going to find God saying, no, it's not. That's not what it's all about. So I'm encouraging you to come. I really am. And please start praying about it, that you would just be prepared for those things. And come with an honest heart, an open heart. And so what we're going to do is just to kind of finish up Mark this week. Thought we'd do something a little bit different. We're going to actually just kind of look at the whole thing. And there's a reason behind this. Or those last few verses in Mark, we're not going to go into those verse by verse because the content of those is really going to be where we're going here for this whole next series and this whole kind of time of reconsidering these things as a church. So it would have been a little bit repetitive to talk about it today and then start talking about it again for the next 8 weeks. So what we're going to do in terms of trying to kind of sum up the Gospel of Mark, I don't know if I'm hoping you enjoyed the Gospel of Mark. It's an awesome account, a story of what actually happened with the life of Jesus and what he did. But I think more importantly, not just what happened, what were these physical events, historical events, but what Jesus was showing by the things that he did. And so what we want to do today is just kind of reflect upon the Gospel of Mark through the eyes of one person, Peter. We want to just kind of look at all the things that we could have learned through the Gospel of Mark. Come on, there's no way I'm going to review that in, an hour and a half. I'm not going to go an hour and a half, just hour 15, okay? So I can't review all that in an hour and 15 minutes. And come on, no way, absolutely not. But what we can do is kind of step into Peter's sandals and kind of see what did he learn through this process. And if you're at all like me, I love Peter. I love everything about him. He's great because he does stupid things. He usually says stupid things without thinking. I've been there many times. Oh, did I just say that? There it went. So I can resonate with this guy, I can relate to him. But yet in the story of Peter, for me, it's this really tangible, it's just such a practical and real example of this idea of Jesus, the Son of God, and his message and what he came to do, intersecting with the life of a real person. Now, I don't know about you. You read about Paul, and you read his letters, and I love Paul's letters, but do you ever feel like he was like maybe an angel or something? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, okay, I know he did some stuff wrong before he got saved, but everything after that was like a home run. The guy was just knocking it out of the park the whole time. And you feel like, I can't really, I want to say I'm like Paul. But if you get up here and say you're like Paul, you should probably leave right away, okay? It's too high of a standard. But Peter, it's like we go, yeah, I get that. And so what we want to do is just, let's go through this and just recount for ourselves what it was like to watch Peter and his life intersecting with the person and the work of Jesus. Because I think there's some really cool things we observe about Jesus in it. And there's some really neat things we observe about Peter and what it's like to be fallen humanity interacting with a holy God in a real and personal way. And that's kind of what we're kind of getting at. That's what Jesus was modeling. And so we want to do that. Now, just by way of review, this is kind of come full circle here when we get to the end of this. But some of you remember this graphic that we've been sort of working through here the last few weeks of this concept, this idea that there is God's big story. There's something that God's doing in the world. And that the accounts of Scripture they're not fairy tale. They're not oversimplistic Sunday school stories for the flannel graph. Any of you remember flannel graph, by the way? I think I've said that a couple. Does anyone know it? Man, I love the flannel graph, and it's like, it sticks there. How does it stick? I don't know how it does it. It's amazing, right? So, we don't have that anymore. We got PowerPoint. It's sad. I wish we had a big flannel graph here. I just put stuff up there and move it around. That's not what the stories of the Scriptures are presenting to us, okay? It's presenting a real picture of God's perspective upon the events of human history. And here's what it's not doing. It's not saying human history exists and God is just telling us what he thinks about it. No, it's actually these things transpired through the orchestration of a God that is working something out. That it's actually his story. And fallen humanity has all these broken pieces in and around this timeline, but yet God is working something out that he's trying to accomplish. So God functions at the level of his story and what he's trying to do and what he is going to inevitably accomplish. And so it kind of is really important for us as we approach the Scriptures. We don't approach it even with an understanding that here I am living my life. I'm wanting God to kind of help out a little bit, make this a little better. No. We come to a book that is what it claims to be, authoritative. You know what authority is? It's like kid, parent. Do not do that. Means what? Do not do that, because I am authority over you. I'm in a position of authority over you. I'm speaking into your little life and saying, don't do that for whatever reason I want, because I'm the parent, right? And we come to the Scriptures with that same understanding. The Scriptures are authoritative. We are under them. We do not look over them and put meaning into them. They are meaning, they have meaning established. We come under them, and they speak to us. God speaks to us about his big story. And then we come with a much different perspective. What does the story say? What is God communicating? How is this story and what this God is communicating in it meaning to me, and how I need to relate to it? Not getting the authority out of place. And that's kind of what this is about. Recognizing that basic presupposition that we must come to the Scriptures with. That's the value that we hold as God's children that believe it. That it is his story, and it's God's big story, and that we function on a much smaller level, and at many times we make our small story actually the big story. And it all centers around me. And I'm hoping God can chime in and make my little world a little bit better. Man, we wrestle with that. Wow, we wrestle with that. But fundamentally, we're wrong. We're coming to the Scriptures with a completely wrong understanding. And this graphic is really here not to wow you, because it's actually not even that good. But it's just here to show you this basic idea that God is doing something. His word is communicating what he is doing and what he is about. And it does answer the question, beginning all the way back at the creation of mankind and the fall of mankind, and what the fall of mankind triggered and what it actually had to eventually bring about. This idea of what God was going to do in the eternal state when everything is all said and done, and God restores things back to the way he originally intended them. And it's this idea that you see at the bottom of the line, this restoration of mankind as complete or whole image bearers. We're all made in his image, but we are not whole yet as his image bearers. We're broken, very broken. Have you felt that before? You might be a child of God. I mean, I feel broken at times, man. Like, this image bearer is not imaging anything really good right now. Like, we're broken. And the reality of our lives demonstrate that, right? And so this idea that God is functioning at a much bigger level, that he's not playing around just trying to jazz up the circumstances of my life, that I would have a nicer car that I wanted, or a little more money, or whatever our little things are that our little world is about, that he's like, oh, no, I'm working at a much bigger level than that. Come on, those are trivial things, man. I'm trying to bring about the restoration of mankind to what I intended them to be as whole image bearers. What that looks like. How would they live out of that? That's God's big plan. That's what he's doing. And so this is key for us to kind of keep this in mind. And here's why I'm reviewing this here. We're going to watch now as we go through a few little accounts here in Peter's life of how God is doing this thing lived out in the life of Peter. He's taking him step by step, little by little, and he's challenging the fundamental misunderstandings that Peter had. And he's doing what? He's bringing him on a trajectory of becoming a more whole and complete image bearer of God. It's fascinating. When we step back at it and look at it through the lens of God's big story, we see God and Jesus not just interacting by happenstance with his disciples. No, he is chipping away at Peter. Chipping away. Got to carve a little bit off. It's a rough-looking exterior, Peter. There is a difficult situation in your heart. I'm going to keep chipping away, chipping away, chipping away. And I'm going to keep moving you towards what it means to be a whole image bearer of God. So, keep this in mind as we kind of work through this. We're going to try to bring it full circle at the end. What did this look like for Peter? Okay, that's kind of the question we're asking, because that's kind of the journey we're about ready to embark on as a church too. As we're going to jump into Peter's sandals as a church and go, okay, God, do this in us. Do this in us. And so let's just kind of learn from his lesson a little bit. Let's start right at the beginning. Just looking at a few of these passages where God begins the story, so to speak, here in Mark, anyways, with his disciples and with Peter. And so we get this, we pick it up in Mark 1, 16 to 20. Again, we're just going to read a few little snippets and kind of just work and observe as we go. Passing alongside the Sea of Galilee, he saw Simon and Andrew, the brother of Simon, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishermen. And Jesus said to them, "Follow me, and I will make you become fishers of men." And immediately they left their nets and they followed him. And going on a little farther, he saw James the son of Zebedee and John his brother, who were in their boat mending the nets, and immediately he called them, and they left their father Zebedee in the boat with him and hired servants, and they followed him. And so we kind of step into this initial part of this story, this idea of Peter, this simple man, but in light of the big story, we kind of step into his world, and we just get some real basic information about the guy, which is actually really important. You know, that Jesus at his time, he picks a fisherman, and he steps into the world of these simple fishermen. That blue-collar, real-life dudes, you know, not the CEO elites of Galilee, if there were such things in Galilee. You know, he wasn't like running the conglomerate of 1,500 fishing vessels. This is like fisherman, man, like just the regular dude. Like, you get what I'm saying? It's like the you and the me. It's the us kind of people that Jesus steps into. And he speaks to him in the language that resonates with Peter. But interestingly enough, he comes to a man that we do know historically there was very likely some previous interactions with Jesus in his story prior to this point, that it didn't just pop out of nowhere. Hey, come follow me and I'll make you fisher of men. Sweet, I'll leave it all and follow you. There was some history there was some understanding there. But nevertheless, in the heart of Peter, in this simple fisherman, the regular Joe, the average guy, the you and the me, make no mistake about it, there was a yearning for more. And Jesus taps into that right away at the beginning when he invites him in. He taps into the desire of Peter and the recognition of Peter that there is more than fishing. There's more than just pulling fish out of the sea in a net and selling them. There's more to life than that. Interesting, isn't it? Simple man, but he was aware of the reality of the deep need of his life to matter at a level much more than just the functional thing that he did for his existence. You get what I'm saying? There was something there. How could Jesus appeal to a guy and say, hey, you're fishing, cool, I'll help you out to fish men? Well, that was slick. How'd that work out? That was cool. And he just uses that, but yet, you know what Jesus does? Again, look, we're getting God's eye view of this thing, is God is saying fundamentally in the heart of all mankind there is this very question that lingers. Is it really just working for PennDOT? Is it really I'm a school teacher? And I'm going to live and I'm going to die a school teacher, and that was it. So I served a purpose, a good one. I'm not downplaying your job if you're a teacher or you work at PennDOT or wherever. I mean, you're a welder or I don't know, name your pick, whatever it is. Is my functional job, is that it? Does that define what life is about? And Jesus comes in and asks right here at the very outset with Peter, and he appeals to him on that very level. Oh, you fish. I'm going to help you fish for men. And you can almost see in Peter's heart that little, what was that? Fish for men? Hey, this sounds deep. This sounds of value. This sounds important. And notice Jesus didn't say, you're a fisherman? A fisherman? What a ridiculous profession. That's not what he did. He didn't belittle him. He didn't downplay his job that he did. But he called him to a higher purpose in life. Man, it's profound. What's cool about this is the example of Peter. We're going to keep going through this, and okay, warts and all, because Peter's got a lot of warts. Warts and all, he was still a guy that recognized there was a yearning for more. There was a desire to be about something greater than just pulling fish out of the sea. Whoa. I could launch off on this puppy for a long time. Man, where are our hearts? Do you see the last thing? Where is your heart, Peter? Every time you read this on every slide, I just want you to stop for a second and say, where is my heart? Jesus appeals to the heart. Peter, fishing's good. How about fishing for men? And Peter's like, man, I'm an idiot, but I'm all in, baby. I'm all in. I don't even know what in the world I'm getting into. But man, this sounds good. I want some of this. I've been hearing about this guy, and I think he might be the real deal. I'm all in. He had no clue what was coming. Johnny checked out right here. Checked out. Not a clue. But he yearned for more. And get this, he takes that step. You ever feel your legs shaking? That I'm leaving everything. I'm going to go after him. Don't misunderstand those verses, guys. Left the other workers, left dad, followed after him. Whoo! Those little verses carry a weight of meaning that no one can express in some little teaching like this. Leaving the family, leaving it all behind because this fishing for men thing, he's on to something. I want to matter for something greater. I'm going to follow him. Whoa! Peter went from playing t-ball to the big leagues right there. He's in the big leagues, man. Demonstrating this humility and a desire to learn. He didn't come in and go, hey, Jesus, I got it. I know how to fish for men. I'm all in with you, man. We could be like partners in this. No, he didn't. He just what? He just follows after him. I don't know. I'm unsure. But I'm in with you and I'm running after you. Peter, where's your heart? Man, I think in this, it's an awesome demonstration of Peter's heart. He did not know it all. He didn't have it all charted out for him. He didn't have all his life's plans met. But he said, this guy speaking to me is calling me into something that is much deeper and more purposeful than the thing that I'm pursuing. I'll leave this behind and go after that. Wow. Holy cow. Where's your heart? Where's your heart? In this journey of walking with Jesus, being formed into his image, embracing his bigger story. Guys, listen, we can plead and we can beg and we can have programs, we can have websites, we can offer you gift cards or whatever. None of that is ever going to accomplish the fundamental step one, and that is what Peter demonstrated. He knew who he was. He knew that what he was pursuing was not what it was all cracked up to be. And he's like, actually, Jesus has a better idea. I'm all in with where he's going. This is step one. Where was Peter's heart? Hey, was he aware of everything? Absolutely not. Was he some spiritual giant at this point? No, I don't think he was at all, actually. We're going to find hardly to the contrary. But he recognized these things. And in a desire for more, to matter more as God defined it, he humbled himself. And he went in and followed him. Yeah, I don't want to get off track. You just stop there and just kind of, let's keep going. Remember, these are just little signposts along this journey as we follow Peter. But look where it started. Where it started matters. Where it's going to start with you matters. Where it's going to start with us collectively deeply matters. Are we there? That we look at the circumstance of life and say, boy, these pursuits seem so good, but Jesus is calling me to something different. I'm going to choose him. Okay, a few chapters later. Fascinating here in verse 37. We kind of blow by this interaction here of what happens in this miraculous event that Jesus does. But look what he says in verse 37. The rest of the story is at 40 down. But in 37, Jesus allowed no one to follow him except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. So as he steps into this miraculous thing that he's going to do, he specifically pulls out just 3 guys. No, you can't all come. It's just you 3. And Peter's one of them. And they laughed at him, but he put them all outside and took the child's father and mother and those who were with him and went into where the child was. Taking her by the hand, he said to her, Talitha kumi, which means, little girl, I say to you, arise. And immediately the girl got up and began walking, for she was 12 years of age, and they were immediately overcome with amazement. And he strictly charged them that no one should know this, and told them to give her something to eat. So here we have this account of Jesus miraculously rising this little girl. And who's there to watch? Peter. There he is. The checked out fisherman. He doesn't know what he's gotten into, but he's invited into this. And he's there by his side as he watches Jesus demonstrate this incredible power of his, as he's experiencing this. And you know what we found as Peter is embarking on this journey of following after Jesus, embarking on this course in life of embracing the bigger story, that Jesus invites him into this unique personal friendship. I chose that word specifically. Friendship. Jesus invites him into a unique personal friendship. Front row seat to the power of Jesus. Interesting. That even in the example of Peter's life, that it's as if, I could be oversimplifying or maybe over-applying or exaggerating this, but it's almost as if Jesus is saying, when you embrace the bigger story, when you leave that behind and you come after me as though I am the one who knows to lead you where you need to go, it will always come about in the context of a deep personal friendship with the person of Jesus. The high God on a throne who just speaks over me and issues condemnation and judgments is not what we see here. Right? We see a picture of a deep personal friendship. Peter, come. Just come with me in the room, and I want you to see what I'm going to do. Can you imagine Peter? Good night. Luckily he didn't have an iPhone. He'd have been snapping and like, good night, man. I got the inside scoop. This is incredible. If you guys could see outside what's happening. I mean, this is nuts. Picture going through these things and seeing these things. And I wonder if it wasn't until later when Peter realized, what was Jesus showing me? He was showing me that to follow after me, it had to happen in the context of a deep personal friendship. Inviting him in to see and experience something at a different level than I do from this right here, right? I mean, I try to do my best of letting you see this for warts and all that, but you don't know. The people who know me better, Jonathan can speak a lot more. He's been there for years. When he saw it like, whoa, in living color, you know what I'm saying? Just don't ask him, okay? Let's just pretend I didn't just say that. What am I doing? No, when you're there personally, you see more, right? You know more. Jesus says, come in. Peter, as you catch the big story, this is not a transmission of facts I'm giving you. It's interacting with me at a deep personal friendship level. You're going to watch me work, but you're going to be there all along the way. I don't think Jesus is doing this by like, let's see, I'm going to pick 3 because I want this story to be weird. I want people for all time to be really confused at why I did that. He did it on purpose, and he's modeling something, guys, that later he's going to say, now, Peter, for you to align with the big story, I'm going to ask of you to go about things in the way that I did. And the lights are going to go ding, ding. Oh, it makes sense, Jesus. This is not, as we love it in America, that we get a podcast that gives me truth statements that I think about, and now I become what God wants. Being a part of the big story is always and only in the context of a deep personal friendship with the person of Jesus Christ. That's how it happens. That's where it happens. If that's void, we're not in the big story. We're not on that trajectory of becoming like him and with him in what he's doing. It's key. Little things happening along the way. Think about Jesus' insider access. Wow. What do you think that communicated to him? Holy smokes, I just saw this happen. This is craziness. I could have been fishing in a boat, and I just saw this. This is amazing. What must he think of me that he would let me see this? Why would he let me see this? Why would I have this front row seat to watch the God of the universe do this? No one has the right to be here experiencing this, but he called me in. What's God doing, guys? Embracing God's big story. God does this. He chips away what's in the way of you, and he keeps getting more and more of your heart. He's winning territory in the heart of Peter. He's winning it little by little. Little by little. You got to believe it, man. You were sitting there watching that, and you walked out and that girl is living now, and she wasn't, and now she is. Don't ask me what happened. There's no way that Peter did not walk out there going, wow, Jesus, what must he think of me that I got to be a part of that? How privileged am I? Isn't that interesting? Where's your heart, Peter? It's changing. It's slow. Is he recognizing all this at this point? I don't think so. I don't think so. But you know what God's doing? He's winning that capital, that relational capital in the heart of Peter. A little more and a little more. And he's taken him further into what it means to be a part or an actor in the bigger story of God. And he's winning that little by little with Peter. And we're going to find this, that he is going to do the same thing with you and me. And it's not an option, it's the only way. That if we misunderstand it, that it's about factual knowledge and understanding about the person of Jesus rather than a deep and unique personal friendship with him as he steps us through him living out his life, doing his mission and his story. Wow. We miss it, guys. We become all here, which really ends up being all about ourself, instead of this deep understanding that, wow, it's actually about him. And what privilege I have that he invites me in. He's inviting me into this. Telling you, there had to be times Peter sitting on a stump under a tree somewhere. Some desert, Middle Eastern area over there. And he had to think that. Why me? Why? I'm a fisherman. Why me? Where's your heart, Peter? Did he run away at this point? No, he's like, you know what? There's something different about this, Jesus. There's something he's inviting me. I want in. I want more of this. I want to go further. He does. 3 chapters later, Jesus went on with his disciples to the villages of Caesarea Philippi. And on the way, he asked his disciples, who do people say that I am? And they told him, John the Baptist, and others say Elijah, and others say one of the prophets. And he asked them, but who do you say that I am? You know what you'd be thinking if you asked it. Oh, crud, trick question. Peter, say something, Peter, Peter, I don't want to answer this. And Peter, of course, says, I got an answer. I know. You're the Christ. You know what that means? It's the Messiah, the chosen one. This is a weighty term for a first century Jew. This is not how we call Jesus Christ, like his name. You are Jesus the Messiah, the marked one from before. This is a huge realization that Peter's saying. What I've seen and what I've heard and who you and all this is converging to help me realize that the one that God has spoken of that would fix this problem, you're him. You're the Christ. And he strictly charged them to tell no one about it. And how Jesus recognizes later on this reality in Peter, this right here, this growing realization of who Jesus is. Catch this, guys. He did not know all of this when he said, leave the nets, come follow me. He's not privy to all the information. He didn't have all the Bible doctrine lined up before. Like, Jesus, let me know. You tell me clearly who you are, and I want proof texts. All right? And then what are you getting me into? Because, hey, I got to think about these things. I got a retirement to consider. And then I'm going to consider it with my lawyer, and I might sign. He doesn't function that way. Follow after me. And every step of the way, what's Jesus doing? He's winning the relational capital in the heart of Peter. And Peter's what? He's recognizing it. He's realizing, because he's all in and following after him, that in the goodness of who Jesus is, he doesn't leave him checked out and clueless. He reveals more of himself to him as he's living his life there right before him. And Peter is realizing more and more who Jesus is. Not just realizing it, because it doesn't appear in the text anyways that in this account that Peter's like, I got 3 options. The Christ might be one of them. It's high. There could be other. I'm not sure. He just kind of says it, right? They say you're this, this, and this. I'm telling you, you're the Christ. I know it, man. I know it. You're him. You're the one. Not just a realization, but you sense a personal conviction there. It's easy to think it, isn't it? But are you ready to proclaim it? You know what I'm saying? When you're with, I know it's easy here because we're all going to go, oh, what a blessing. You said you believe in Jesus, right? But when you're with people that don't, and they ask, maybe they just ask you, are you really, you're going to put everything, and you're going to put everything in that basket right there. That Jesus is really it. He's the God man, and died. And you're going to do that? You ever been there? And you're kind of like, wow, I don't blurt it out quite like Peter did. I'm a little more reserved. I maybe don't have the personal conviction. Fear comes in and deals with my heart in a very dangerous way. And all of a sudden I'm hemming and hawing, and I'm like, whoa, we got to get back to work, and I think breaks over, and we don't want this conversation to go further. I don't sense it here with Peter. I sense a guy who's saying, they're all saying these things. I'm telling you they're wrong. You're the one who they all think you're not. You're him. There's a conviction there. Peter's heart is little by little, one by one, being won over more to not just what Jesus says, or get this, not even what Jesus is asking him to do, but it's being won over more and more to who Jesus is. Has God asked Peter to do anything wonderful for him yet? No. Guess what he's asked him to do? I'm here, you're there. Follow me. And as we go, I want to win your heart over to who I actually am. And I'm going to keep chipping away. I want to win your heart. That at the very understanding level and the deep conviction level, you'll be convinced that I am who I said I am. And Jesus keeps going. He keeps going. He began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders and the chief priests and the scribes and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. And he said this plainly. Jesus tells his disciples this. He's explaining them. This is what's going to happen, guys. This is going to happen to me. And Peter took him aside. Brilliant. I love this. Peter's like, hey, guys, hold on. I got to talk to this guy. Jesus, come here. Let me enlighten you to something. He takes him aside and rebukes him. The creator of the universe, Peter, says, stop. Let me help you. Come on. You're getting carried away here. Let me enlighten you to what's going to happen. You don't know about us, man. We are not going to let that happen. He rebukes Jesus. But turning and seeing his disciples, here's Jesus realizing he sees Peter saying this to him. The other disciples are watching, and he drops this grenade on him. Get behind me, Satan, for you are not setting your mind on the things of God, but on the things of man. Whoops. Shining moment for Peter? Yeah, ouch is right. Like, ooh, oh. How does Peter recover from this? You're being used of Satan now. Remember back there, you just got finished telling me that I am the Christ? You recognize that, but even in that, you're not there yet, Peter. You're thinking you're going to correct me. See, if I am the Christ, I speak over things. I say what happens and what doesn't happen. Not you. Peter, come on. Okay, the first part was good, but man, we slipped quick here, Peter. Downhill. Thinking in his bravery and his courage to follow after Jesus, he could rebuke him and say, no, I'm going to step in. I ain't going to let that happen, all right? Don't you worry about it. Us disciples, we're a rough bunch, us fishermen. We'll take on those Romans. Like, who is he kidding? Who is Peter kidding? And Jesus corrects him in such a forceful way. And here's what we have. On this journey of Peter embracing the big story of God, we have this struggling with temptation. Clearly, right? What does he say? Satan. You're being used of Satan. Wow. And not that you remember what he said? Because you're not setting your mind on. Peter wasn't just being tempted. He was setting his mind upon the temptation that he was receiving. Easily distracted. Forgetful of who the one was that he was speaking to. And if anything, Peter, overly self-confident. No. No one's taking my Jesus down. I'm not letting that happen. Wow. Where's your heart, Peter? Here you are in the journey. Jesus is convincing you, you're seeing and you're recognizing, but yet in that everyday, in and out of life, the reality of this very human is temptation comes and distraction comes and forgetfulness sets in and self-confidence and pride overtake. And what does Jesus do? Discard him? Put him aside? I mean, guys, you're a tool of Satan now? Do you think, I would guess where a good percentage of many of us would be at this point. Back in the boat, fishing. I failed colossally. Jesus just called me a tool of Satan, man. I'm done. What do I have to offer? I might as well just go back and fish. What could I possibly do for him? And Jesus, kind of models something here that he's not done. Not done yet. He goes on, calling the crowd to him with his disciples. He said to them, if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake and the gospel's sake will save it. For what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and forfeit his soul? And here in this deep struggle of Peter in the up and down, the shining moment, you are Christ the Messiah. Ding, score, home run for Peter. We will not let anyone get you, Jesus. Oh, you're used of Satan. Deepest valley. I mean, it is up and it is down. But in the midst of this, Jesus gives a clarifying call to him. Peter, do you see this great mountaintop that you were on and that deep valley that you were in? You demonstrated something at the beginning that maybe at that point was an easy choice for you to follow me. But the life of following me is one that requires you to continually give up. Give up. Take your cross. Follow him. He uses language of personal sacrifice. He reminds Peter that embracing the bigger story requires personal sacrifice. He speaks with the example of the cross, that a life lived in the context of the bigger story actually has death in it. Requires death. Death to you and your story, Peter. Death to you and your idea how these things are going to play out. It's just not how it's going to work. Following me is following me. It's putting to death those things. Take up your cross, follow me. Laying aside, who wants to save his life in the end will lose it. You preserving your life in the way that you see fit is not how this is going to play out, Peter. That's not what it means to follow after me. There's death there. There is a giving up of things. But catch what he said. If you will lose your life for my sake, you will, what? Gain it. Not just death for death's sake. There's death to your own desires unto life. Peter, let me remind you of that. Peter, you're getting off course. Wow, you slipped big time, buddy. Because you forgot that following after me is dying to self that you may actually live. You think you're living as you are doing what you want, but that's actually bringing death. I ask you to die to self that you might live. Scary proposition, isn't it? You ever read those verses and thought, next. You should. It should be frightening. Because what it's proposing is something that's not comfortable. Hello? Jesus reaffirms the whole graphic that we've been putting up there, that reordering your personal story with just adding Jesus into it is not what it's about. That's not how it works. It's forsaking your small story to be an actor in the bigger story. That's what Jesus was saying to Peter. Peter, as you just got through this rocky valley, remember, you don't orchestrate where this goes, dude. I do. Hey, Jesus says this. Where's the question? Where's your heart, Peter? How are you going to respond? How are you going to respond, Peter? The thing that I just proposed to you is not comfortable. How will you respond, Peter? Where will your heart be? Okay, finishing off here. We're getting closer. I give you a little hope. Just a little. And as Peter was below in the courtyard, one of the servant girls of the high priest came. And you know where we've kind of jumped forward here towards the end. We're in Jerusalem now. At the time of Jesus' death. So the servant girls at one of the high priests came, and seeing Peter warming himself, she looked at him and said, "You also were with the Nazarene, Jesus." And what did he do? Denies it. After what did he say, remember? What did he say about these denials? Sort of the last thing. Remember what he said last one? Like Jesus says, you know, they're going to kill me and all this. And Jesus was like, hey, I got to correct you. That's not going to happen. Remember, you're going to deny me 3 times. And Jesus, and what did Peter say? Yeah, you're probably right. I will. Oh, he's like, no way. I'm not going to do that either. So here we go. I neither know nor understand what you mean. Whoops. And he went out into the gateway, and the rooster crowed. You would have thought the first rooster would have triggered something. Didn't Jesus say something about roosters? Nope, didn't hear that one. And the servant girl saw him and began again to say to the bystanders, this man is one of them. But again he denied it. And after a little while the bystanders again said to Peter, certainly you are one of them, for you are a Galilean. But he began to invoke a curse on himself and to swear, I do not know this man of whom you speak. And immediately the rooster crowed a second time, and Peter remembered how Jesus had said to him, before the rooster crows twice, you will deny me 3 times. And he broke down and wept. You know what we're seeing here, guys? We're seeing a very real human wrestle deeply with being an actor in the big story. Deep wrestling. Deep personal failure. For all we know, within eye shot of Jesus as he's saying these things. Whoo! Hey, listen, he is bottoming out. He is bottoming out. Deep personal failure. Complete personal failure. There it is. How could there be any recovery from this, right? In this place of bottoming out, after Jesus, he just got finished rebuking him, Jesus corrects him. Jesus gives him the call to the cross life of leaving behind his desires and his plan and embracing Jesus's, that's where he will find real life. And we see right here in the denial of Jesus, he didn't get that. He didn't win that lesson in his mind. He still thought he could go about it his way. And when the heat was turned up, he's there in the pot and the water begins to boil. Oh, he denies 3 times. Epic fail. Tough. Where's your heart now, Peter? Where's it now? Laying over there, trampled on. Right? If the story ended here and we never heard anything from Peter, would you guys be surprised? I wouldn't be. I mean, I would read it and think, that's kind of predictable. I would predict that after that, dude was off the scene, man. Not a part of it. Interestingly enough, check this out. After the resurrection, Jesus comes back to life like he promised, like he told Peter he would, right? He demonstrates the thing that Peter needs to see and be one in his heart more than anything else. That final real confirmation that he is who he says he is. And after the resurrection, lo and behold, what does Jesus do? He finds his way meandering down to the side of the sea to some guys who are fishing. Happenstance? Jesus just likes fishing? Who's he going after? Guys, make no mistake about it. He's not like walking along, oh, good night, there's Peter. What are the chances in that boat is Peter? I had no idea he'd be here. Jesus walks down there, catch this, for Peter. For Peter. I'm not done with you. Come here. We'll cook some fish, we'll eat. Yeah, we'll get there. Come here. I'm not done with you yet. You were learning. You bottomed out. You're learning. I can make something of you. If you will learn this lesson. Did you learn your lesson? You see me alive. Did you learn that I am who I said I am? He said to him the third time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Remember this series of questioning? Do you love me? Do you love me? The third time, do you love me? Peter was grieved because he said to him the third time, do you love me? And he said to him, Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. And Jesus says, feed my sheep. Go get them. See what he did? Peter, in this journey of yours, warts and all, and lots of warts, major failures and all of that, I am working and I desire that you get it, that it's about you being an actor in my story, and I will win your heart if you will make it available to me, if you will humble yourselves, if you will recognize I will win your heart, I will prove myself true every time. I will not fail. And he does that and he demonstrates that. And his love that he has for Peter is so overwhelming that in that failure he would come back to the sea and want him. And not just want him to say, hey, thanks, can you just ask for forgiveness of me and we'll be all good? No, what's this all for? Look where he's going. Now go, feed my sheep. Act in my story. You got it. You're getting who I am. I've won your heart. Go feed my sheep. You're ready. Can you imagine Peter like, what, I'm ready? I just had the fail of a lifetime. What do you mean I'm ready? Jesus, I'd like to take you aside and rebuke you again because I think you're making a mistake on this one as well. Like, do you realize what I just did? But Jesus works at a different level than you and I, guys. He's functioning at a different thing, and he's trying to win the heart of Peter. And sometimes in the recognition, in the deepest bottoming out, is when we realize the reality of who Jesus is. And Jesus knew that. And he says, you got it now. Go feed my sheep. And look what he says after this. Truly I say to you, when you were young, you used to dress yourself and walk wherever you wanted. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands, and another will dress you and carry you where you do not go. This he said to show what kind of death he was to glorify God. And after saying this, he said to him, follow me. You got that? You realize that, Peter? I've won your heart. Go feed my sheep. And you're going to die doing it. Did he say this the first time he called him out of the boat? Hey, come, I'll make you a fisher of men. You're all going to die. He didn't do it, did he? He didn't say that. He won his heart, and when he was at the measure of really, like, Jesus is who he said he is. I'm convinced. That love demonstrated for me is overwhelming. How could he have ever done that for me? And it's in that heart that he says, okay, go. You will follow me. You're going to die doing it. But he was ready. Peter was ready. Would he have been ready before? I don't think so. Jesus doesn't play games. He's modeling us. He's modeling for us something. So we have this idea of what God's doing. And then we found in the life of Peter that here's what all that was showing through Mark is Peter was getting closer and closer and closer to understanding what it meant. Oh, this is what it means to be an actor in his story. It's not this self-built up, like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to count for God, man. I'm going to read my Bible every day. I'm going to memorize more than anybody else. I'm going to give more money. I'm going to do this for God. No, it was in the context of Jesus leading, not us making promises. It was Jesus moving and working and saying, come, look unto me. Watch me as I convince you of who I am. And when I win your heart, I will cut you loose, and you will follow me even into your own death. Because you'll know I am who I said I am, and you'll follow me. You'll do it. It's phenomenal. Phenomenal story lived out in the life of Peter. And I warn you this, as great as it is to sit here looking at that and go, wow, God, that's great you worked that way in Peter, it's all going to flip around and come to us. It's not that Jesus did that with Peter and then with us it's going to be about comfortable life of us pursuing our own desires and God just blessing us richly and making it all work out. It's fundamentally flawed. It's not what Jesus is offering. But get this, in the middle of all this journey, here's the thing that is so phenomenal. In the middle of all this up and down, this Peter winning, losing, eventually becoming convinced of who Jesus is, and Jesus sets him loose to serve him. Remember in the middle of that, he said, this life that you have that I'm leading you into, it's going to be giving up. Those who lose their life for my sake will gain it. And this journey is not about defeat. It's actually about experiencing real life as God designed it. We sit there and act like, oh, goodness, I got to give everything up. And shoot, holy smokes. This just doesn't sound good on any level. We can take that thought. You know where it's going to take us? Remember the first part of that equation? Those who will try to save their lives, they're actually going to, you'll lose it, guys. You'll lose it. You'll lose your life. You won't experience what life is meant to be like following after the person of Jesus Christ, living in his bigger story. You won't have it. It will bring defeat and failure and regret. But the alternative is, he says, it's real life, man. It's real life. And all the way through this journey, what was the question? Peter, where's your heart? So in preparation for like where we're going, let that invade your mind. Where is your heart? Listen, I'm not asking you where's your understanding. I'm not asking you where's your money, where are you putting it. I'm not asking you where's your car, your house. I'm not asking you that. I'm asking where is your heart? Because that's the question every step of the way that God was directing at Peter. I know, Peter, circumstantial things, I get it. Where's your heart? When he wins the heart, he wins the life. That's where we're going. Think about these things. Ponder, question. Ask yourself as we step into this, where's my heart? Where's my heart? Am I prepared to go on the journey like Peter? Am I prepared for that? Man, I hope you are. There is no greater life. There is no greater thing to be an actor, a small actor in God's big story. Nothing greater in life. There is joy and peace that can never be found anywhere else. And it's because not that's what I want and that's what we need. It's because that's where Jesus is. That's where he's working. That's what he's doing. And you get to walk through that with him in close personal friendship with him. Please, come on. Hello. This is the good stuff. This is the good stuff. I'm done there. Let me pray quick, and we'll have some questions while we do the offering. God, thank you. Thank you for the life of Peter. I just thank you for recording it. Man, we just look at Peter, and it's like, man, this is someone like us. This is someone we can relate to. And it resonates. It connects with us. And I'm just so privileged to be in a position where we can consider our lives in reference to this. And I ask that you would just burn this question upon our hearts as we step into really a time and a season and looking fresh at your word, thinking about these questions deeply, that our hearts would be deeply challenged and that we would know that it's about the questioning of our hearts and seeing those changed for you. So we thank you for Christ and for him doing this for us. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, We got time for a couple questions maybe while we do the offering. If you guys want to come up, if you're a visitor here, you can let this little basket pass from you. Don't worry about it. No big deal. We're just glad you came. You're here. So go ahead, guys. Want to come up? Ladies, whoever's doing that. And time for some questions. Thoughts? Yes, sir. Go ahead.
From what Dan was saying last week, what does it mean to live resurrectionally? I think that was your word, right? Resurrectionally? That is what happened also in between those two times, was not only that Jesus died, but all of a sudden he's alive again.
Yeah.
And he's talking to Peter, and Peter begins to see really the reality of who Jesus is, not just by him following him all these 3 years, but all of a sudden the proof, was in the pudding of the resurrection, and it radically changed how he saw not only Jesus, but also then what it meant, his life in Jesus, and following to death, but also to eternal life, because he lives, he's going to live too.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate that, Ed. That's so true. I was at a restaurant, and a fortune cookie thing said, I'm serious, a fortune cookie thing said, great ambitions make great men. He was there. It was actually his fortune cookie. Which it sounds like a really neat phrase, but it's actually not entirely true, and I kind of like what you were saying. It's not just great ambitions for anything. It's what make great men is great realization of who Jesus Christ is, and the ambition for him and who he is as he says he is changes people, and that's really what he did. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just to comment on that further, I think one of the coolest things about Peter's story is just the hope of the fact that Christ really does change lives. I mean, the whole fact that it's recorded in Mark is by and large because Peter was willing to humble himself. I mean, the relationship he had with Mark, the whole account means he came to that point of realizing, hey, this is bigger than me. And he could have very easily just left that out. And then so the Peter that we saw in Acts, which seems like a completely different guy, it just, we would have never known, and we may not have that same hope.
Yeah, that's really good. I think you're right. He gives us that information that connects that for us at a deep level, gives us hope. Anybody else? All right, why don't we spend some time praying. If you want to pray, just put your hand up. We'll get the mic to you, and then I'll close after a little bit.
Yeah, dear Jesus, I just pray that you can reveal to us what a humble heart looks like and what that starting point looks like, God, because it's very easy to live a Christian life that's not really daily considering the mission that God has for you, and more just kind of asking God to step in to bless this and bless that. God, and we know you can do that, but I pray you show each one of us what it really looks like to consider really having God run our life, and God, that's just something that a lot of times looks unappealing from the outside, because hey, then I won't be able to live what I wanted to live and how I wanted to live. But God, it's so much better. It's so much better to live your story, and I just thank you so much for inviting us into that.
Yeah, God, thanks for giving us a chance to look at your word again. I thank you for, even just like Curtis was sharing there, the fact that you give us that story of Peter. I pray that that would be impactful for us at a very practical level. And even realizing that it took 3 years with the creator of the universe working in this man's life before he was ready to serve you in the capacity that you wanted him to. And that it wasn't just that Peter was humble, but that he was humble for a long period of time in the middle of failures, and he still realized that there was something about Jesus that was better than what he would pursue on his own. And yeah, we're thankful for his example in that very practical area. And I pray that you would challenge us with that as well. That in a culture of sound bites, and a culture where we live on minuscule posts of little phrases, thinking that that's where life is lived out, that we would be challenged at a deep level, that it is a personal friendship with Jesus over a long period of time, humbling ourselves under him, that changes and transforms people. And that we've seen you demonstrate that over and over again, and that you would remind us of that too, that that's what you want to do in our lives and in the lives of those that we're trying to reach as well. So we just thank you again for Christ. We thank you for his goodness to us. In Jesus' name, amen. See you next week.